Hello, thank you so much for finding this video. If you are here, then that means you have are curious about African fashion or already know about African fashion. So to start this off, I wanted to start with a game, maybe like a mind challenge thing. I want you to close your eyes, you closing them, and I want you to think about the continent of Africa. What's coming to your mind? So, what did you think about? I know there's a lot of things you thought about, but my question to you is, was African fashion one of it? Well, if it was, then kudos to you. If it wasn't, hey, don't you worry, it's all good. Because African fashion, a fashion from Africa, has largely been ignored. It is a continent when it comes to fashion that we have just been ignored. And Africa has been sort of painted in a not so nice picture. The lens that they use to portray Africa as a whole has not been a kind one to us. And because of that, Africans have decided to take charge and create their own narrative. When you think about African fashion, you think about the lenses of which has been portrayed by the media. So it's a caricature of what really fashion is, and that is not what African fashion is. But I'm here today to talk to you about African fashion and what that means, and who are the designers of the continent, and what are they bringing to the table, and why you should pay attention to them. So let's get started. I hope you watch all the way till the end. My name is Koya Nyangi, and I'm born and bred in Kenya, and I'm currently living in the United States in Denver, Colorado. I am a style curator, I'm a fashion PR and consultant, and I'm an independent sales representative for African brands. Essentially, what my work is to connect African brands and designers to a global consumer. And I hope that together you can join me in this journey in doing that. So let's begin with what is African fashion? A continent that has 54 countries and over 1,000 tribes, African fashion is as varied as the people who inhabit it. And I think when it comes to fashion, that is a good thing. Because when I think about African style, I think about, oh my God, the creativity that we have, the skills that we bring to the table, the traditional techniques that we are reviving, that we are using to create our beautiful garments. I think about all the skilled workers, and I think about the employment that African fashion is creating in the continent. And I just think about the sustainability aspect of it, and mostly I think about a new aesthetic. It's just new, it's fresh, it's interesting, it's vibrant, it is unapologetic, it's style at its most truest form, and it's absolutely still largely in top and still not thought about. And I want us to have these conversations, and I want you to think of African style as that. It is not one way, it looks so many ways. You have designers from Nigeria creating new aesthetics, you have designers from Kenya and designers from South Africa just bringing in a freshness and something raw that we haven't seen. And I think that's what gets me so excited about African fashion, and why it's so important to me to showcase this brands from Africa to a global consumer. I mean, my work as a stylist as well is to bring in new things, and every time I think about where am I gonna get something that nobody ever has, or like styling wise and creativity wise, I think of Africa. I think of this whole continent is just a melting of ideas and creativity and potential and such heritage and such culture with great craftsmanship. And that is what African fashion is to me. And that is what it's going to be to you when you're done identifying and knowing about African designers. The reason why it's important for you to pay attention to African designers is African fashion and is the one of the frontiers where sustainability is still thriving, and all the designers and the brands, when they're creating their pieces or they're creating their businesses, sustainability is at the core of it all. But because Africans are not, we never have a lot of resources. We have to make do with what we have. And that is actually the cast that became the blessing of African fashion. Africa is one of the very few and maybe the last places of where you can actually answer the question of who made my clothes. I mean, when I think about the designer Axe, who is creating bags, and she has hired women from Ghana, and they are hand weaving all these bags one at a time. For me, that is sustainability at its core. And that is where fashion should be headed. That is what we as consumers need to be thinking about when we're buying our clothes, because at the end of it all, we have the ability to look at brands who are creating beautiful garments and also taking care of the environment. And that is one of the reasons, the many reasons why I love and I'm such a huge supporter of African brands and designers. Because African fashion has largely been ignored, there's a void in retail channels of African fashion, and I am trying to bridge that void. And that's why it is my mission to connect African brands and designers to a global consumer who cares about the heritage of the designs, the sustainability of the designs, and the work and the impact that the designer is putting, and what it means for you as a consumer. So when we buy an African brand, we are essentially allowing these African designers to be able to hire one more person and one more person and one more person, and eventually it becomes, we have been able to curb unemployment. We are taking charge of our narratives, and our fashion for us is is one of the ways in which we are able to change the narrative of Africa and how we have been viewed and how we can be able to move forward. There's a lot of inspired by African collections. So the next time you see an African inspired collection, I, first of all, want you to just get the real deal from African designers and African brands. And by doing that, you are supporting employment. You are saying yes to sustainability. You are saying yes to a narrative that is not blocking some continents but welcoming them, and creating diversity in the racks, in your closets, in the retail channels, just generally creating a greater diverse of representation of brands. And I hope that this process can start with all of us. So for us to make this change happen, there is a need for the world to see African fashion and for the world to consume African fashion. So I want you to join me in my aim in helping to connect African fashion brands to a global consumer. It's about opening up ourselves to give equal representation of different parts of different brands, regardless of where they may be, even if you're coming from a continent called Africa. So thank you for watching.